When we got started, and I'm glad Jen is here, all we thought was it would be easy to do. We have done field works, we have done
Daría
quite
un
a lot
mail
of
como
lab
para
work, and Kumara will also be my witness here that
that's crazy.
no,
Daría.
and again, we had done
Porque
all
la
the
acción
kind of
acuerda.
concept
Pero bueno,
water analysis
tiene que
in
llenar su
other
content creation y
colleagues'
tiene que
lab,
bajarse
in Jeff's
una
lab,
aplicación que se
Johnny's
llama
lab,
Very
and
Slides.
at CDC, and
Ahí
it
tiene
was this should
que
be
hacerlo de
easy to
certificado
do,
de
but it
vacunación y
wasn't the
todo
case.
eso. Así que les recomiendo que
I'll give an
trabajen con ahora
example.
porque
When we
ahora
first visited
es
Kumar's
mejor
lab in
siempre hacer el check-in
2016,
y no pasa
we
nada
did
porque no
K13
pueden hacerlo,
sequencing
pero
by
quisieran
Sanger,
hacerlo.
we did
Y también les
qPCR,
recomiendo
and
que
all the
lleguen
things
con
we
tiempo
wanted
al
to do.
aeropuerto
Actually,
para que
6 weeks. And we
pase
had
con
almost
con
500 samples. We analyzed and got the
una cosa
publication
más,
in
chicos,
Speed.
lleven por si
When
acaso
we got back home to
la
set up
carta de
the
exámenes,
sequencing, Sanger
esta,
sequencing,
por si se las
using
piden
the same protocol, it
en
never
Miami cuando
worked
pasen
from
migración.
2017,
Ahí les
and
van a
we
preguntar
just
otra
made
vez,
it happen
¿para qué vienen a
this
Estados Unidos
this
si no se
fall.
puede
So
ir acá?
6 years
Entonces, por si
troubleshooting
acaso,
to get
señora, en
just
el
sequencing of
folder
one
se le
gene
pongan sus
work.
pasaportes,
And what in all of
pasa
that
passport,
would have made it better?
y cualquier cosa,
I
porque
think
si ya tienes
we,
algún papel que vas
yes,
a
we should
necesitar
have
para
realized
venir,
that, and this is something we have learned, that whatever works in another lab will necessarily not work in your lab. You will need to optimize because the water, the condition in the lab, and everything is completely different. So that naivety, we shouldn't have had it.
Other questions from folks? I can't see with the light, but go ahead.
Here at the back. Hi, morning. My name is Pablo Chalke. Great presentation, Doris. Just a quick question about, are you engaging with policymakers to try and deal with the red tape and bureaucracy around procurement? Because I think obviously you started setting up a lab and you're sort of a pioneer in many ways, but to make sure that future scientists can sort of have a country, Tanzania, where the red tape and the policy around procurement has been addressed. Are you dealing with that?
Thank you so much. We are doing that, and I'm glad Dauda is here. So Dauda being our model on this of engaging NMCP and other policymakers, will have more to say than I can. But suffice to say that when we started, we thought NMCP and the Ministry of Health will be very supportive. It was a great project, and we thought it was going to make a great impact. But that was not the case. We took 6 months to get NMCP on board, but the moment they got on board, everything got solved. We had all the partners in the regions aligned, and at the moment, whenever we are anywhere in the country, everyone knows that we are coming, and we are actually very much supportive. The most important thing actually was when we sat with them, with the National Malaria Control Program and the Ministry of Health, actually we revamped almost half of the objectives, particularly in the parasite population surveillance. For instance, we didn't have monitoring of species with us. We didn't have monitoring of the metacytes with us. We didn't have monitoring of submicroscopic parasitemia, which we are currently doing with us. But they said these are actually the critical questions we want answered. We had to take them on board, and we are addressing them. So my advice would be, if it were possible, and this is what we are doing actually in the next phase of the project, is get NMCP on board, and that's why they're here with us, to ensure that all the things we are doing are actually 100% or as much as possible aligned to their wishes and expectations, as well as operational questions they would want to answer.
All right, thanks, Deus. So our next speaker will be David Geisbach, who's going to give us some updates of antimalarial resistance in Tanzania.
Good morning, everyone. My name is David Gisbert. I'm a postdoc in the Jeff Bailey lab, and it's been my privilege to be involved in the data analysis and troubleshooting with this very big team. And so I'm really here representing a much larger group. So yeah, that very big team working across the world has all pulled together to generate the data I'm presenting now. So some background on why we urgently need to do this kind of study. Two recent studies, one from our group in Rwanda, showed that there is 561H, which is a key mutation in the CELT13 gene in Rwanda, and we found it clustered near the Tanzania border. So there is something interesting going on near the Tanzania border with this interesting mutation that is resulting in delayed clearance or partial resistance to artemisinin in Central and Eastern Africa. There are other mutations that we're seeing in Uganda as well, so 469Y and 675 are mutations that appear to be clustered more to the north of Uganda. And so really the work of the next few years is going to be trying to tease out from these disparate pieces of the puzzle what is really going on. Why are these interesting single nucleotide polymorphisms showing up in different regions? What are the kind of baseline characteristics that are driving that expansion and spread, and kind of who's going to win in this battle? So there's an urgent need to fill in the map and get really good countrywide surveillance in this region. So this is really the basis for the MSMT project, to fill in the map in Tanzania. So in this map in panel A, we're looking at little yellow squares, which are cross-sectional studies that were done. And the green circles represent the squares. So this represents a massive effort on the part of the team. And it's really the first time in Tanzania that there's been this kind of countrywide surveillance at this scale. And if you look at the color coding on the map in panel A, the dark purple represents high transmission areas with high prevalence, and then there's kind of a band down the middle of low transmission. And so we're able to look across transmission zones in Tanzania, and so our sampling scheme has kind of a mix of regions that follow different transmission characteristics. So there were those two arms of the study, and we ended up having over 7,000 MRBT positive samples coming into the study. And so there was an enormous effort of punching, so a lot of sore hands and a lot of anxious moments, I think, as you're sitting there with your whole punch. So kudos to everyone who was involved in that. So the method, very briefly, we talked about molecular inversion already, but there's several ways we could have done this study, and we chose to take the avenue of using molecular inversion probes. And the one thing you kind of can remember is that we have the capture region in gold here, and then we have other information with barcoding and unique molecular identifiers in the blue and red. And then we have one primer sequence that in every tube we're using that same primer sequence to amplify off of these circles. And so that really allows us to go to the bigger multiplex than we could with amplicons, where you have gene-specific priming happening. So results, slide number 1. This is the current status of K13R61H. And so in the gray is where we sampled but did not find any mutants. And so you can see that in most of our sites we did not find any R561H. And almost all of our samples that contain R561H were in the top left there in Kagera region. 2 of them are in Tabora region. Then in panel B, you can see that it's really clustered in one of the districts within the Kagera region. So in Karagwe, we have one health facility in the center there that has around 25%. So really an interesting spatial pattern of that mutation. And for those that aren't super familiar, this is bordering the national park in Rwanda, and so it's this interesting intersection between Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and Tanzania, and a lot of cross-border travel is happening, and it's going to continue to be a really interesting place to dig into what's going on exactly. So the second slide is showing a little bit more detail on the Couch 13 team. So in the first panel, P419S is a mutation that we haven't seen before. It's a proline substitution near the validated mutation 413. So it's the same mutation happening in the same little nick of the protein. So that's something that's going to be interesting to keep looking at. And then in the second panel, R561H by region. And so we were able to, for all of these, to genotype from approximately 3,000 patients. And then finally, we saw a small number of samples that contained the R622I mutation. And this is the mutation that is increasing in prevalence in Ethiopia and other parts of the So it's an interesting mutation to watch and monitor. And really, there's so many questions that are being raised. Why are these mutations popping up? Is there evidence for travel in these individuals? Or are these happening in America? So there's a lot of unanswered questions with Couch that we will continue to dig into with the 2022 samples and with collaborating studies in Rwanda and Ghana. So then looking briefly at some of the sulfur-dioxine pyrimethylene markers or SP resistance markers. So it's not amazing news or earth-shattering news to anyone that the DHFR IRN haplotype is known fixation in the country, as you can see here. An interesting finding is that 164L on DHFR-TS is showing up clustered also in Kagera, the same region that we saw the 569 mutation. So this is something that we were not expecting, and it's going to require further investigation. And we also found in 3 other regions, the highest of which is in and then in panel C, we're seeing that 540E is a very high level in the rest of the country, and then in panel D is the 581 mutation, which is around 40% in some of the regions that we have. So this is really a high degree of one of the markers of high intensity resistance to sulfur-dioxine on the gene. Then looking in a little bit more detail on 164L, this pattern that we're seeing in Kagera really suggests that there may be some kind of local expansion. Maybe there's been a large importation across the border. We really don't know, and so this is going to be a really interesting mutation to look at. I think anyone working on IPTP will find this finding very interesting, with the caution that there are clear benefits for continuing IPTP, even we don't always know why that's working in the presence of resistance. Then looking at DHPS, the other gene sulfur-dioxine pyrimethylene resistance story, we're seeing 540 in fixation, as I said, and then 581 is 40%. So this is something that we can continue to monitor, and we will give feedback to decision makers as we think about the continued use of sulfur-dioxine pyrimethylene in targeted situations, and the STEGA haplotype. The last thing that we did was look at some of the connectivity in the Kagera region. So one hypothesis that we might have thought could have been happening is that there was a handful of importation events that happened and then a really big quantity expansion. And so that's kind of what we were looking to see whether there was any pattern like that and what was the question. So we did an identity by descent analysis, and really, I don't know how well you can differentiate between red and blue here, but red are the mutant R561H parasites, And looking at genes outside of the resistance panel, we were able to show evidence of clustering, but not clustering of the resistance mutants. And so that really suggests that this mutation is showing up on a lot of backgrounds, and there's been a transfer of a lot of recombination. And it may also suggest that the mutation has been modified. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone who contributed. Thank you to the funders, and then I'd just like to highlight the fact that every one of these little green dots represents a huge effort in the field, something that I was not a part of, and really each one of these health facilities represents a community effort and community engagement and building trust that is so crucial for our interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions from the audience? The mic's coming over.
Thank you for the great presentation. Looking at your IBD picture, I mean, you're clustering together samples that have 95% IBD, and yet you seem to have several pairs where one has the mutation and one doesn't. Or am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so any SNPs that went into that analysis were not mutants. So we did not look at the genes that are actually involved in resistance. So these are background mutations outside of the resistance genes. So yeah, they're sprinkling along the genome the different targets that have this background variation, and so that's what the plan is.
Other questions? Sir?
Hi, David. Nice talk. It's kind of different from the school. Have you seen any mutation like 431 in space? We seem to see that in high prevalence in Nigeria, recently linked it with 581 and 613.
I believe we saw it in a very small number, but it didn't show up as anything but thank you.
Question here? Zoom? Can you read the Zoom questions? I don't see them.
Yeah, I have a question. Hello, I have a question here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Simbe from Arusha, Tanzania. Yeah, so I would like to know which criteria you use to select those regions for your analysis.
The genome regions or geographic regions?
Yeah, geographical regions.
Geographic. So why the sampling selection in those sites?
Yes.
Maybe David can take it. I mean, I think we wanted to sample broadly across the nation.
As I mentioned, MSMT study was anchored on surveillance of HIP2 gene deletion, which says you should sample at least 10 regions, and each region you should sample at least 10 health facilities. And the regions should cover all the different types of endemicity. So in this survey, we had 4 regions from high and moderate, and then 6 regions from low and very low transmission area. So as you can see, the regions with high transmission intensity were from Arusha, Kagera, Mara, Tabora, and Mtwara, and then all the other regions are low and very low transmission.
Thank you. We have one other question here, and then I think we move to the next one.
Yes, thank you. Sulama from Burkina. Regarding Radiashofa and DHPS mutation, do you have any idea of the SP efficacy in Tanzania?
Yeah, I really don't know whether I can answer that. I mean, I think the expectation is that there's going to be a lot of performance based on the genotypes that we're seeing, but I think there's really going to need to be further studies, especially agree that one should be cross-border effort. But 581 is personal.
Thank you, David. All right, our next speaker is David Bloomer, and he's going to talk about population genetics of transmission and use cases for control and
Good morning, everybody. So I'm here to give updates on population genetics in Tanzania, how we use the genetic data to start the prevalence or the transmission of Plasmodium in Tanzania. So when we are thinking about the genomic surveillance, we started with this eyes here. So we see the upper part, which is very small, which is a traditional way of analyzing the way we use it to collect the Plasmodium information or the malaria information. And also of the traditional way of to measure the prevalences, the incidence, also to give the rough estimation of the transmission intensity. This traditional method is very less robust, and it does not give us population genetic dynamics of the parasite. So we applied all the genomic approach is used or is applied now to give or to go deeper to the understanding of the population, of the genetic dynamic of the Plasmodium. So with the upper part, we analyze the incidence, we analyze the prevalence, and most of the time we can miss those asymptomatic cases, etc. But based on the genomic data, we can get more information about the population dynamic, which analyze the population of the parasite. It can give us an idea on how the parasite responds in the intervention, because the program they apply different intervention. You want to know how the parasite respond. So also it can help to know the spread of the parasite. We have low transmission region, we have high transmission region, how this parasite connect with each other. We have several regions, how the parasite move from one region to another, there is any connection, etc. It can give us the efficacy of the control intervention, how the parasite responds to the intervention. So it tells us for how long we're going to take the intervention, 1 year, 2 years. So based on the genetic, you can see how they respond, so you can see how long we're going to take. It can give us the feasibility of the countrywide, this is the region-specific control intervention. Should we apply the local intervention? Should we apply the countrywide intervention? Should it be based on the region? So based on the genetic data, it can give us a highlight on what approach should we use toward the control of them. Also can give us the corridor of the parasite migration. So because we have the low transmission, we have high transmission, so how the parasite moving from one region to another. So it can highlight us on the corridor of transmission. So with this approach, or this, as we already presented in the previous presentation, we collect over 18,000 samples, and of them we have over 7,000 MRDP positive samples from 14 regions, from 55 districts, and more than 140 health facilities. And these samples, they are coming all the way across the countries, as this may be mentioned somewhere, but it shows that the samples will be collected all over the countries, so it can give us more power to say that this information which we are getting, it represent the country. So from this one, we apply the MIP, or the MIP technology, which David mentioned a bit. But this MIP is very robust. It contains a lot of nucleosnips across the genome. here you can see all the 14 chromosomes with the plasmodium with a different location. So it can give us a good idea of how the parasite looks like, and this is what we use during our downstream analysis. And because we had a lot of samples, we decided to start with a few regions. One which is very high transmission region, which is called Kagera, and the other which is a low transmission, which is Manyara. And as we see the map of Tanzania, you can see that the malaria is very heterogeneous, as we presented in the previous presentation. So we want to answer this question here to understand the data transmission dynamic within the country. So what really happened between the high transmission and the low transmission? So we did the analysis for two regions for comparison, like a pilot. So this will add a picture of the pilot, and then going to apply the same approach to the rest of the region. And after we have received our sequence data, as in any other population genetics, it's very important to do the cleaning, the filtering. And here our filtering criteria, we remove all the slips with a mismatch of 50% and the sample of 50%. To ensure that we remain with the clean data. This data we can go down to the stream analysis, and it can give us the result we're going to trust. From the data we get the visual side and the ARAT for different analysis and the protein effective. So here I'm going to present some of the results. Which started with the complexity of infection as a measure of transmission dynamic. And we know that the higher the complexity of infection, it's indicated the high transmission. And we consider the Kagera as high transmission in the Manyara. And this here is a key we need to note that in Kagera we found that there are some isolates or some parasites, some individuals with more than 10 parasite or isolate, different isolates. Or it's more polyclonal compared to Manyara, where we have a maximum of 4. So this can just give us a quick idea. And out of all samples from Kagera, we found that 68% of all samples are polyclonal compared to 24%. So it gives us a quick rough idea of the comparison between the high transmission region and the low transmission region. So I already mentioned that the high complexity of infection, it reflects the high transmission, or it reflects high ongoing transmission, while the low complexity of infection will represent low ongoing transmission or loss by infection. We went down and narrowed down within Kagera. Because in the previous presentation, we found that there are some mutation in 561 mutation in Kagera, and we really want to know what is really going on in that region. As it already found that it's border Rwanda, Kagera. So we want to know the connectivity between the parasites. The parasite from what are they parasite related? Are they look similar? And we found that, like here, there are some parasites or some in this lot health facility where we collected our sample, and to see if there is any connection between one health parasite from one health facility to another health facility. In fact, at this middle here, that's like a point where most of there's a lot of connection, like most of the parasites will connect to this region and this region. But few of them, so like this facility here at this corner here, some of them are in low connectivity. But some here in the middle show high connectivity of the parasite from one facility to another health facility. And so it means that most of these facilities around here, they are very highly related, and that's why they show the relatedness. But the connectivity decreases with the decrease of distance. So as the distance goes, the connectivity also decreases. we consider or we analyze the load transmission to see what really happened in the load transmission. Well, that's what happened in the high transmission. Now we went down to the low transmission, which we select Manyara as one of the low transmission regions. But this is different from Kagera. We found that even if they are very close to one another, but there are some health facilities which are not connected with one another. It means we think that even though they are very closer to one another, but there are not related direct. You can see this health facility here, you can see this health facility here, you can see this facility at the same place, but they are not connected. That means that at the local level, there is a clustering within that the local areas, and there is a lot which indicates the load transmission area. We went down further and analyzed the structure of the parasite within the region of high transmission to see how the parasite are they showing any structure? Are they coming together? So we found that most of the parasites in the Kagera region, they are clustered together, with the exception of few samples of the few health facilities, which we call them outliers. But most of them were clustered together. And as we mentioned in the drug resistance results, we saw some isolate with 561 mutation. And we want to know, to answer the question, is this isolate a clonal, as one parasite which undergo clonal distribution, or they just arise independently? And we found that they are not a clonal expansion, rather each individual is not connected to one another, and most of them, we can find some of them that they are like outliers. So it gives us an idea that we have the mutation, but it's not a clonal expansion. And we went down to see the connectivity between the health facilities, and found sample from health facilities, one health facility were more clustered together. And you can see this health facility, with the exception of some health facility where it shows the connection between one facility with the other facility. But the connectivity decays with the increase of the distance from one place to another. So as I mentioned, that was the pilot part of analysis. We are now going down to analyze all regions, then to see what is happening in all regions, Tanzania, which involved in the study, then to see, we combine the region to see, to get the picture of the country. After seeing the region, then we're going to combine so can give us the overall of what will happen in the Plasmodium transmission in Tanzania. So at the end of the day, we're expecting to get the data which can help us to monitor the changes of the parasite population, but also to know the impact of intervention being implemented in the Tanzania as a strategy to eliminate malaria. So thank you very much. I would like you to acknowledge some of the support from all these here, plus many others who help us to achieve this goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions from the audience?
Hi, I'm Alex from Los Angeles Community. On your first couple of slides, you had a high proportion of negative RDT results. And I wondered, were those patients showing malaria symptoms? And do you think there was false negative results? And that if you included those in your, would it impact your results? If you included the false negative patients?
If you look at the RDT negative samples to see if the parasite material and did the interrogation at all with RDT negative, presumably they came for fever, right? You tested RDT negative. Did you sample any of the RDT negative?
This is most of the risks come from the health facility, and we consider all the symptomatic individuals. So we take all the MRIP positive and use them for the analysis.
So you haven't looked at IDT negative?
No.
Any questions?
Hi, thanks for that. I'm Bruce from UCSF and this is I was wondering if there is other measures both on the parasite and human movement that match the information that we're seeing with genomics. So in particular, are there differences in parasitemia, parasite density in the two regions? And second, in the connectivity work, does it match your expectation of how humans move in the region?
Thank you very much we have the data for human movement. So based on this data, now we're going to incorporate the human movement to see the parasite movement toward the human movement. So for now we're not getting good here, but in the future analysis, as we have the data, we're going to incorporate the human movement toward the parasite movement to see the connectivity. And this is very important to see what is the driving factor for the parasite movement.
Any final questions? Thank you very much. One more. Sorry.
Thank you. Lovely analysis. The artemisinin-resistant mutation seems to be found in high transmission region rather than low transmission region. Compared to results in Southeast Asia, that's counterintuitive. We normally expect artemisinin resistance to start emerging where transmission is lower because of various reasons, blood pressure is higher, etc. Do you have a hypothesis for why it's happening in the high transmission areas?
Thank you for the question. Still, we have some questions we want to answer. As the previous presenter mentioned, we want to see the same mutation will be reported in the nearby country. So, as we mentioned, we want to do like a comparison to see is it coming from jump shift from Rwanda to Tanzania or from Uganda to Tanzania. So we still will have a lot of questions which we need to answer them, and we're going to include them in our answer to see what is really happening so that we can give that answer in a more correct answer.
Thank you very much. Our final speaker before we get to the panel is Eric Rogier, who's going to be talking about antigen and genotyping data for supporting surveillance of HRP2
All right, thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Dave. And so before I got up here, Sarah very gently reminded me to explain that serology does not mean just one thing. And I'll briefly talk about that at the end. But at the same time, molecular surveillance, as we're doing in Tanzania for molecular surveillance of malaria in Tanzania, does not also mean one thing as well. And I think one of the things I love about this project is really how it emphasizes the numerous types of data and what that means for malaria in terms of not only molecular surveillance, but great sampling designs as well as surveillance data as well. So my name's on the slide here. I'm Eric Rogier with CDC, but I'm really speaking for many, many, many individuals in this room and outside of this room who put a lot of great work into this project. So I'm going to be showing some of our findings regarding deletions in HFP2 and HFP3 genes in Tanzania from 2021. And so upon the discovery of natural PF populations in South America, like in LAC1 or both of these genes, I think that raised some eyebrows, but wasn't so much of a concern at the time because there wasn't much RDT use in South America. Then when it was found in Africa quite recently, this is when a lot more concern really crept into the picture. And so I'm just showing 3 studies of some recent surveys in Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Djibouti that's actually shown quite high levels of these deletions. And so why do we care about this? Because if the parasite does not make the HFP2 antigen, and especially both the HFP2 and HFP3 genes are deleted, there's absolutely no way that this RDT is going to turn positive, regardless of how many parasites are in a person's blood. This is such a pragmatic diagnostic tool that we have so much of, especially sub-Saharan Africa, that if we were to lose this in some places, it would be really quite devastating. So for Tanzania specifically, there have been multiple reports and studies that have looked for these gene deletions in the country. The important thing is none of these have really been nationally represented. They've been either convenient sampling or some small studies in certain areas of the country that have investigated the presence. And so, long story short, yes, previous studies have found these deletions in the country, but what does that really mean for the program? What does that mean for the diagnostic utility in the country? So I'm not going to go through each of these studies individually, but long story short, again, that HRP2 deletions have been found, very low levels, very low prevalence in these smaller studies. And so that's a good news story to begin with, but we really needed a more comprehensive study to be able to look at this from a national perspective. So in STEPS MSMT, with sampling from February to July of 2021, this is a different version of a map that you've already seen many times. But the idea is that there was sampling from 10 different regions throughout the entire country. Within each of those regions, you have 10 different health facilities that were selected. So we're talking about patient enrollment of persons with malaria-like symptoms from 100 health facilities in the country. So massive undertaking, very impressive in itself. Very importantly, this encompasses many different transmission zones within Tanzania as well. So some of these places, especially in the central part of the country, there's very little malaria at all. You would even say approaching elimination if that was possible. But then some other areas where RDT prevalence and many subsequent cases are found. All of the persons that were enrolled in this study received 2 different types of RDTs. One was a combo RDT for HFP2 as well as a pan-plasmodium LDH. And the second RDT the persons received was specific for P. falciparum LDH. In addition to RDT screening for antigen carriage, samples were also sent to the CDC in Atlanta to look for antigen carriage through multiplex laboratory assays. So we have 2 criteria in order to assess the phenotypic status of these falciparum infections that we found in Tanzania. The first criteria that we had was the dual RDTs that were provided to each individual. The discordance for an RDT result is if it's positive to the PIN LDH marker or the PF specific LDH marker, and negative for the falciparum specific HFP2. As a lab multiplex assay, we define discordance for these specimens as very high levels of either PF-LDH, P-aldolase, or P-LDH, but low or negligible levels of the HRP2 antigen, and the assay would also pick up the HRP3 antigen as well. So for selection from the lab multiplex assay, I'm showing this in the red shading on the slide, and you can see that the vast majority of specimens that were positive for any antigen by this assay were actually very strong signal for HRP2 after. And so the samples that were selected for further molecular interrogation for gene deletions are shown in the red, but you can see just from the shading that's a very small percentage of those samples. So of the RDT discordance, we had 57, and that's 1%, 1.5% of all RDT positives under this discordant category, so positive for PLDH or PFLDH, and negative for the HRP2 band on the RDT. So that's pretty encouraging news to begin with, not only for deletion story, but also for the non-falciparum story as well. Certainly a just as data has shown, in Ovale, the malaria infection, could also turn that KNODH positive if they're not going to have HFA2. From the lab antigen assay, we selected 135 specimens, and that's just 4% of everything that was run, in order to also assess for potential HFA2 and 3 gene deletions. And so what I'm showing here in this chart is the two-part selection strategy that we have, and the samples that were selected, then extracted DNA for species-specific PCR. And at the end of the day, from these two selection strategies, we had 137 falciparum DNA positive specimens we could go forward with the HFP2 and 3 genotyping for those. But just by the antigen data alone, that was actually very encouraging in terms of this deletion story, because the vast majority of individuals who are positive for any Plasmodium antigens were showing these high levels of those antigens in their blood. So continuing the flow chart, from these 137 P-falciparum positive specimens, after quality control assays in the laboratory, 119 were able to amplify other single copy genes for appropriate for genotyping results. And so of these specimens, we actually found no specimens with dual deletions in both HFP2 and HFP3, 7 specimens with HFP2 single gene deletions, 6 with HFP3 single gene deletions, and actually the majority of these specimens we found to be wild type, so they have both intact HFP2 and HFP3 genes. Very importantly though, of the 7 HFP2 deleted specimens, 5 of those were RD2 negative in the test as well. So even though they had the functional HFP3 gene in the genome, it did not produce enough of that antigen to have a compensatory effect on the RD2 result. So even HFP2 single deletion is very important. If you put these deletions on the map with the red X's indicating the HFP2 deletions and the blue dots indicating the HFP3, for the most part you actually see this pretty widespread throughout the country. The one exception to that was in the southern part of Gombe region, which is in the southern part of the country, where we actually found a cluster. We weren't able to do any geospatial analysis because the numbers are so sparse in this, but we found 4 HFP2 deletions and 2 HFP3 deletions just among a few health facilities in the south. There's certainly rationale for looking into that part of the country in further surveys. Very importantly, 6 of the 7 HFP2 deletions were actually found in the very low strata, as categorized by the 2020 NRCP data, and all of the specimens were in the low or very low transmission settings. So a finding that's also been seen in other countries as well as with seasonal variations in low transmission parts of the year, that we can find these deletions more. So a finding that we certainly need to keep in mind when interpreting this data. So the 2021 survey that occurred in Tanzania is really the most comprehensive HFP2 and 3 deletion study that's been done in Tanzania to date. Unfortunately, the vast majority of specimens that were positive for any Plasmodium antigens were showing very high levels of HFP2 and 3 antigens. And so what this was telling us was that by far, P-falciparum still dominates in the country in terms of clinical cases, and then the vast majority of these specimens were showing high levels of these antigens, which are going to be the diagnostic target. Single gene deletions were found for both PFHFP2 and PFHFP3, but no specimens showed the dual deletion genotype. Very important, because in dual deletion, there's no chance at all, unless it's a multiclonal infection, that RD2 is going to turn positive. We did find a cluster of these gene deletions in the southern part of the Gombe region, which is a very low transmission region in the country. And so this really provides rationale for further follow-up surveys on that. The data does not support at all moving away from HFP2-based RD2s in the country. And very importantly, though the lab antigen work was done in the CDC in Atlanta for this study, future multiplex work is looking to be done in Tanzania and a big clear objectives of this project is to establish that serological capacity in Tanzania, not just for antigen detection, but for antibody detection and many other types of multiple assays as well. I would like to thank numerous collaborators and persons who provided their time for this, and I'm glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Eric. Questions?
That one. All right. That was great. Thanks, Eric. Are you all planning to sequence the cluster from the Njombe region to see if it is just a single lineage circulating there?
Absolutely.
And when
If
do we
there
get
weren't
to
any
see it?
questions, no, I was going to mention that is we do need to look at relatedness among these deleted parasites that we did find. And so certainly with this cluster that we see in Njombe, that's the low-hanging fruit. We need to figure out how closely those are related to each other. But not just for that region, but really throughout the country to look at those as well. I think, I mean, the evidence has shown not only in Africa, but many other places, is these deletions can arise from multiple background strains. And so I don't think there's evidence for clonal expansion in this population, but we can get the data to look at it.
Sorry to you first.
Hi, Joanna Silva from the University of Miami. I don't know if I missed something. What proportion of the gene do you consider a deletion? How do you assess deletion?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just looking for the HRB2, the reaction we use is a whole gene amplification. And so it's a yes or no question. And so there might be partial deletions, there might be truncations of the genes, but those would not amplify a PCR product, so we would call those deleted as well. You know, keeping in mind that there's certainly, the gene itself could actually amplify, but there could still be point mutations causing the non-expression or no mutation. And we're not able to assess that with this data. We're just looking for the whole gene sequence.
Thank you. Thanks. Cathis Ramirez, PMI resident advisor for CDC in Senegal. Thank you for this nice presentation. It's really wonderful to see such a thorough methodology implemented in the study. My question is really about the cost of such a study, because if countries are interested in doing the same kind of assessment, what are we looking at? Because I think, you know, we do have a tendency to go for convenient sampling because it's faster, cheaper. But these kind of approach are really necessary to get a good understanding of the presence of these mutations. But what are we looking at in terms of budget? Thank you.
No, and I'm really so glad you brought that up, because as presenters today have shown that you can use one well-designed survey for multiple purposes. And so the design of this survey was really based on WHO recommendations for 10 administrative units throughout the country, and within each of those 10 health facilities. So the idea is a national representative in order to look for RD2 discordance and microscopy RD2, and then some molecular assays for that. And so I could not speak specifically to the cost, because I was a Dave's question and all, but I would like to just emphasize that a well-designed survey, even cross-sectional survey, can really provide a lot of great data, not just for HRB2, but relatedness, drug resistance,
Excellent. Thank you, Eric.
Okay, so now we get to the fun stuff, or the more fun stuff. I'd like to thank all of our speakers, which set up a great discussion, and I'm going to invite our panelists. We have 3 in the room and 2 online, which is great. So Dada Ngai and Jasri Raman and Gengardi, who are in the room, come up to the table. And then Alfredo Mayor and Isabella Oyer are online. So we have great representation across the country. All right, so I'm going to move to this mic where they come on up. And Doris will stay at the table as well, since it's great to get all the different perspectives. What I thought we would do is just start out first by having each of them introduce themselves and maybe talk a little bit about their role in molecular surveillance broadly. And since we have a lot of great country representation across Africa, if that's appropriate, maybe speaking a little bit in comparison with what we've heard about the state's work going on in Tanzania, how their sort of strategies or approaches may be similar or different, or make at least one comment about their country context when appropriate. So we will start in the room, and I will ask Jaspreet to speak first.
Hi, I'm Joshi Raman, and I'm from the National Institute of Communicable Diseases in South Africa. And so I run the anti-malarial drug resistance surveillance network for the country, as well as I also coordinate the molecular surveillance for the E8 countries, which are the 8 eliminating countries in Southern Africa, which are Angola, Mozambique, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Eswatini, South Africa, forgetting one country, Botswana. And so we're setting up a project that is going to be doing something very similar to what DAS did in terms of molecular surveillance. But for South Africa, we've had a molecular surveillance project going on for a long time now, where in all the endemic districts, we get samples coming to the area into my lab, and we assay them for HIP2 deletions as well as drug-resistant markers, and anything else that is interesting as well. But we are now adding in the connectivity, because we're trying to help the region get closer to elimination. We need to know where the parasites are moving from. So that's really nice to listen.
Dada.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for inviting us for this panel. My name is Professor Daulingai. I'm the Chief of Parasitic Disease Department of the State University in Senegal, and I'm also the Director General of the International Research Economics Center at the UCAT for Applied Genomics and Long-Term Surveillance. Also, today, since a couple of months now, is a great collaboration with the Foundation and PMI, and the African Director of the Parma Network for Training and Capacity Building and Therapy for Medical Surveillance. I'm happy to be here and we'll discuss more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and hi, everyone. Excuse me, my name is Jen Gardy. I'm the Deputy Director for Surveillance Data and Epidemiology on the malaria team at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. My portfolio there includes 3 broad categories of activity. One is strengthening routine surveillance systems for malaria using traditional approaches, so health management, information systems, etc. One is helping NMCPs use data for decision making and through supporting things like geospatial analytics and math modeling. And then the third, relevant to all of you in the room, is supporting the expansion of malaria molecular surveillance in sub-Saharan Africa, again, in a way that is aimed at helping NMCPs make better programmatic and policy decisions. It's an area that the Foundation has been interested in for a long time. If you rewind to 2018 and prior, so before I joined the team, we did support some kind of proof of concept in this area, particularly work that Dada's team was doing in Senegal, just showing that you can use an array of malaria molecular techniques to get at epidemiological insights. Since 2019, though, we have really scaled up and moved out of funding proof of concept and into funding routine scale-up of this work. So I'm proud to say that over the last 4 years now, when I started at the Foundation, we had about $15 million of investment in molecular surveillance. It was in 4 institutions, all of which were in the global north. Now, today, we have active investments totaling $88 million in this space. Over half of that is going to sub-Saharan African institutions. We also have projects in South America in the GMS. We have active footprints in, I think, now 17 countries, and a lot of really fantastic teams where NMCP researchers are working directly with labs. Sarah. It's a really broad portfolio, and it's an area that I did work in for many years before joining the foundation, so it's been great to see it grow and exciting to see the results coming out of Doris's team's work today.
Great, thank you. We're all thankful for that support. Online, we should have Alfredo Mayor.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I'm Alfredo Mayor, I'm a researcher at the Manisa Health Research Center in Mozambique, and also at the Barcelona Institute of Global Health in Spain. So I'm based in Mozambique. I'm leading this project funded by Gates Foundation to build genomic capacities in Mozambique. So basically we have two main aims. First of all is to build the technical capacities exist in the Manisa Health Research Center to do sequencing and to establish a sampling scheme in the country to collect the samples that will be analyzed in Mozambique, and of course interact very closely with the National Malaria Control Program to actionate this genomic data. So this project is done in collaboration with the University of California San Francisco, with Mariana Greenhouse and Andres, also with Malaria Consortium, which is taking care of the sampling in Mozambique, and IDM, the modeling part of the project. So we are using four main sampling approaches. First of all, well, as Mozambique is very heterogeneous in terms of malaria transmission, very low transmission in the south, some areas are targeted for elimination, and very high transmission in the north. So we are doing a dense sampling in the south, in areas targeted for elimination, to be able to assess importation versus local transmission. We are also doing targeted sampling in the 11 provinces in the country through health facility surveys, and also we are assessing a new approach which is based on the use of pregnant women at first antenatal care visit as a source of information for malaria surveillance. So at this, we are in the second year of the project. We have faced several challenges, many of them already described by Deus, such as the difficulties of procurement and international transfers. But well, we are also finding the solutions to be able to move forward with the project. Now we have the MISEC in Manisa, so we are very happy and starting to generate the data. Hopefully soon we will provide information about the molecular characteristics of the project in Mozambique. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfredo. Isabella, are you online? Is Isabella there?
Yes, I am.
Great.
So, good evening from Kilifi, and thank you for this opportunity. So yeah, I'm Isabella Rier. I work at the Kemri Wellcome Trust Research Program in Kilifi on the coast of Kenya. And I'm funded by BMGF as a Calestous Ruma Fellow, Leadership Fellow. And this fellowship has allowed me to bring my research work looking at monitoring drug resistance. This work I've been doing in collaboration with Jeff Bailey and John Giuliano in the US. And the plan really within the project that's funded under BMGF is to integrate malaria molecular epidemiology into routine surveillance here in Kenya. So our profile in Tanzania is not too far off. Sorry, our profile in Kenya is not too far off from Tanzania in terms of the heterogeneous transmission of malaria. So the plan is to, through the project, establish sentinel health facilities where we can have DBS sample collections in collaboration with the National Malaria Control Program, and support them with understanding the need for malaria molecular surveillance. And to date, what we've been doing has been engaging them over the last year of the need for malaria molecular surveillance, establishing a malaria molecular surveillance strategy within the National Malaria Control Program, and setting up a malaria molecular surveillance sub-technical working group. And this group is of researchers in the country who have at one point done some malaria molecular work, to bring everybody around onto one table, supporting the NMCP, so that data that's coming out of research institutions can inform the malaria control strategies in the country. And that's another way of trying to integrate this within the routine surveillance platform. So we've been working and training staff within the National Malaria Reference Lab, which sits within the National Public Health Lab. And so we've had links with the head of the genomics unit within the National Public Health Lab, the National Malaria Reference Lab, and had the two of the National Malaria Reference Lab colleagues come over to our lab to develop molecular skills. I think one of the lessons we've learned is, as much as we want to move on to genome sequencing, we've discovered that we've got to start with the basics of molecular biology and with PCR. So yes, they were keen to do sequencing, and the advantage of that was just knowledge, increased knowledge because of COVID genomic surveillance around sequencing. But when they come to the lab and see what's required, we realize that their gap was at the PCR level. So that's where we began the training and building up this molecular surveillance capacity, and they're happy to work with us. And I think, as Deas and Alfredo said, it's just really engaging the teams to understand what this means for the long haul and how we can maintain it within the country. So they're now working with us quite closely, and we're really happy that it's become part and parcel, because it wasn't as easy when we started generating data for research purpose and then shared it as experts to the working groups within the National Malaria Control Program. There was a disconnect, and now we're able to co-create these questions through this project for what they need, and they've asked for us to look at HRP2/3 deletions, so we're developing tools for that, as well as looking at and resistance patch 14. So we've been working, again, because of the collaborations with Jeffrey John in the US, developing AMSI in country so that we can look at a range of molecular drug resistance molecular markers to support the NMCP. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Great. So, although I have a lot of questions, I think what I will do is see if there are questions from the audience, and you can direct them to one or another panelist, or to multiple panelists if you would like. So maybe I'll start and just see if there are questions that the audience would like to hear more about in this space from our distinguished panel. Nothing you're curious about, huh? We have a question over here.
My name is Cassia Wagner. I'm with the University of Washington and the Fred Hutch. My question is about data sharing as we kind of scale up genomic surveillance capacity for malaria. I'm wondering if there are kind of plans for more investment in kind of real-time data sharing, which we've seen be incredibly powerful for other pathogens, and having like platforms like this for COVID-19.
Maybe Jen, I'll ask you to think about investment in this space, and then if others want to talk about in this space, like where they are in that process, but also the challenges in what data sharing means from a country perspective, because I think that will be different for different experiences. So maybe start with Jen on where you see that going, and then maybe others can speak to their own experience.
I think malaria molecular surveillance is a really interesting use case. I come from the pathogen genomics world. I spent a decade working in TB, flu, vaccine-preventable diseases, and doing a lot of outbreak reconstruction, phylogenetics, phylodynamics work. And there, sharing of whole genome sequencing data is vitally important. There, sharing the associated metadata is vitally important. But in the malaria molecular surveillance space, the work that we found is very applied surveillance, and we want aggregate results, like what is the proportion of HRP2/3 deletions in Tanzania? What are you seeing in terms of molecular marker expansion in East Africa for Smith MK13? And so there, it's less about the raw data and more about the interpretation that comes out of that. And there are a number of really good resources out there, and I think the one that it's important for the community to really get behind is WHO's malaria platform.
So that is something we invest in through our support to WHO's Global Malaria Program, but it contains data for resistance emergence, it contains data for HLP-T3 deletions, for invasive vector species like Manfred Stevens eye. So we really encourage our grantees to get their data into NPM as quickly as possible. And I also think, just a philosophical comment, is that one of the things that promotes good data sharing amongst the community is good relationships amongst that community. So whilst we've spent the last 4 years trying to seed a lot of capacity in sub-Saharan Africa labs, one of the things that we're really focusing on a lot, we've done it in this past year and we're looking at this going forward, is now building community amongst those nodes, because when you have strong relationships and collaboration, Deus attends Dada's weekly lab meetings, as does Salama is here in the room. When you have those sorts of collaborations and communication, a lot of the thorny parts of data sharing somehow magically disappear.
Thank you, sir. Follow what Janice was saying. I think in the question of data sharing, I will add data sharing and reporting. Why it's important to add the reporting? Because we want to share those information between scientists, between health workers, but also between these funders. And for that, you have to report it. And I can give you it's a long way to get this point of agreement and trust between all partners in a country level, but also outside the country, meaning as Jane mentioned, like South-South collaboration and agreement. And I think the experience we have in Senegal, for instance, it's come from 20 years of, for instance, molecular marker surveillance and other state regulation. Today, I'm happy that in every report at the NMCP, I see Kati CFO nearby, our data, even from the HFP deletion data to the molecular marker typing, sequencing data, the diversity, everything related to that is reported. We have 3 pages of report in the National Malaria Control Program annual report. And monthly basis, the information are shared in real time. Because the goal of all this surveillance is to help for real-time, immediate decision making. Not like what we did for us 20 years ago, waiting for publication before we share. 3 months or 1 year before, after we find something that the data is shared and reported, is not good. I think today the goal for the young generation is to make sure that they found something, tomorrow is reported. And the day after tomorrow is very action. Exactly what now for elimination of these people are doing, diagnostic action prevention system. And that's why for me, we need to build the capacity even after the collaboration with NMCP, a strong collaboration. It comes from a long way, as I mentioned. You have, like scientists, have to teach, have to share in a very low level of understanding to NMCP and others what does molecular marker mean. They know they use ACTs for treatment, they use SP for prevention, IPTP and essentially amidacin. They don't know what KCT mean. You should explain them what does it mean. So then you need the need for them to know that, for instance, as someone present here, there are some negative RDT. When you say that it's negative RDT, you need to do sequencing on order to see if there is deletion. They know that, for instance, it's important they come to you and ask you to help them to see if really is a negative RDT, because they tell the patient but nothing happening. And by the end of the game, as I just mentioned, within Africa, like we have Tanzania, Burkina, and others, for example, with the Parma network today, there is a real plus. That's why I really thank all the funders who supported Africa for many years. We have the chance, for instance, with Gate Foundation for many years. Again, we come from a MySeq in 2014, and today we have one of the biggest labs in the world with almost 10 sequencing machines, and others, the key game are in the lab. Because the government of Senegal, for instance, understand what we do. They trust or not, because we're giving to them what they need any time. They put money on the table for us to build a new center with a collaboration with PMI, with Gates, with others relating that. And by the end, anything happening in Senegal today in the sub-region, we can investigate and providing them for free before we publish our data. I think it's something I want to mention for this procedure.
Thank you, Dada. Just
Just a quick comment. Data sharing is a big challenge in Southern Africa for sure. And I'm glad in East and West Africa they've got it sorted out, but Southern Africa we really haven't. So it's a huge problem. And even with the project that I'm involved in, which is working with the NMCPs and researchers, we're still trying to build that trust and get data sharing. So yeah, I'm not quite sure how we're going to answer it, but let's just work it.
Isabella or Alfredo, either of you want to comment towards this?
I think data sharing is essential. I mean, sharing the sequences that we are going to generate, the metadata associated to make it fully available. And I think it is very important to take this into account from the beginning when starting with the development of the project, when going to the ethical committees, and also when writing the informed consent. So I think my experience is that taking this into account since the conceptualization of the project, it makes things much more easier later on. Yeah, thank you.
Isabella?
Okay, thank you. It was just to echo what Jan had mentioned, that the relationships being built is so critical. What we experienced is when we did have that relationship with the NMCP, there is not necessarily distrust, but just an essential lack of understanding of the power of molecular surveillance. I will admit in Kenya, the COVID genomic surveillance has really helped just understand what sequencing means and what data sharing means, because labs are able to give data for testing, or labs are able to give data on the variants that we're circulating. Using that has really helped build that bridge towards improving our need for data sharing and trust as well with my institution and the National Public Health Lab here in Kenya. So we've used that as a way to begin to integrate the malaria molecular surveillance. And then the other key point was what Dauda mentioned, being able to give those reports back before we publish. So in our end, the NMCP want to see, do we have a mutation before we put out a publication? As they call it, they like it, hot off the press. And this is particularly important for therapeutic efficacy studies, where they wanted to gain the molecular data that was supporting the therapeutic efficacy studies that are supported by PMI here in Kenya. So yeah, trust and developing relationships, and then early sharing of data, and in a format that they can understand. So interpretation is one aspect.
Thank you. Question from the audience. So over here.
Thank you. My question is really about the translation of scientific information for policymakers. As a former lab scientist who's gone on into areas of science policy, I have, over the years, in different infectious disease systems, felt that as scientists we have a tendency to really want to give all the details, and we're experts in our area. However, when we engage with policymakers, it's very often people who don't have a scientific background and who need to make decisions very quickly. And that aspect of translation and what is the right amount of information to provide so that they can make a decision is sometimes, as a scientist, difficult to do, because we go against our own nature of wanting to give all the information that we have. So what are you doing specifically to try to facilitate this translation so that the data can be effectively used by policymakers? And I'd be really, I am more familiar working in Senegal. I am familiar with the Senegal example, but I would really love to hear from other countries, because I think this is really a challenge. I mean, I remember having to provide information to the US ambassador in Bangladesh about influenza, and he was like, why do you guys keep changing from H5 to H7 to H1? I mean, they just want to know, what do we need to do? And sometimes scientists, we just overcomplicate the situation. Thank you.
Great. So thinking of that, and if I could add for policymakers, but also like decision makers, which might not get fully to the level of policy, and I'll remind people about Jen's comment around the threat observer for WHO. But does someone on the panel want to address this important question that Kathy raised about how do we help translate evidence into decision making?
Yeah, I think the one way we've tried to do it is try to have them involve policymakers quite early on in the engagement as to what the research is, so that they are involved as to what we're doing and they're aware of the question that the program is asking as well. So they have that level of understanding. And then when we are giving them the data, I agree with you, have to learn to give them one line. It is a problem, it's not a problem. Do something, don't do something. It's really, you have to really scale it down. And also really, and I found it really strange, they really do like maps the graphs or the figures, which they have basic colors. So, red is danger, do something, green, don't do something. And that seems to be the way that we've managed to get a lot of buy-in and policymakers and decision makers to react a lot quicker.
Yeah, I'll just jump on that. As one of my favorite areas, Institute for Risk Communication and Public Health course back at UBC, did a lot of work in the information visualization space, including on how do you take TB whole genome sequencing data and give it to a clinician to understand antimicrobial, TB antituberculous medication prescription, and give it to epidemiologists so they can do cluster investigations. And what Jayashree said is bang on, like basically a single summary line. I spent a lot of my pre-foundation career collaborating with scientists that work specifically in information visualization. And when we worked with Public Health England on taking a report that they designed for taking TB data and communicating it out, we actually took all the design study principles from InfoVis and applied it to a redesign of that report. And we did a lot of discrete choice experiments with different end user audience, from clinicians to epies to policymakers to other scientists, to see what types of information people wanted to see represented and what form they wanted to share that in. I will just caution folks against the color scheme though, because public health still really loves faxing information. And so we realized that presenting reports in grayscale and having both a textual summary statement, a headline at the top of the report, and then people could drill down and see the maps and graphs from more detail was helpful. But Kathy, I'll send you a link to it.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I think it's a very good question. And I think, as my colleague said, we have to include the... I'm happy today because I'm still a scientist, but I'm not a policy maker, but I'm a decision maker in my country level and in another organization. I think the best way, as has been said earlier, is first of all to include them as the early beginning of the process, even when writing the protocol, thinking about the program, doing the implementation part, the data analysis and the generation report. And then by the end, even the policymaker will be the one, for instance, sometimes even to present the finding. They go around, propose and then talk about the epidata, demographic data. Even today in Senegal, for instance, when you ask NMCP to present the case rating and the molecular microsurveillance data, they will be happy to do it because they were engaged at the early beginning. And the last step we are working today is even to integrate the genomics data to the published data. What we are doing, we had a meeting yesterday with IBM that was from the Foundation. We thank them a lot. Now the data manager are working together to understand what special data is meaning, how they directly are connected, and how the report will be. So from that they will work from a dashboard where they will get all the information, and from NMCP level, from themselves, they can see the data, interpret the data, and exactly know what's happening there in real time in a very long way. So in summary, let's include them in all this step, at the early beginning until the data analysis and reporting. And I think at this way, those guys will be. And finally, the example we can do is COVID-19. I'm sure 5 years ago, when you ask to somebody what is RT-PCR mean, they say it's not from the war. Go to airport, show them RDT, COVID-19 test, they say this is not good. We need PCR data testing. Meaning, because all those guys now are engaged at the process of the COVID-19, and today they're exactly what the science means for this. Thank you, sir.
Isabella or Alfredo, any comment? We're close to time, but just if you have a quick comment.
Yeah, it's just a quick one to echo one of the highlighted statements in a policy brief. We learned from the COVID experience that having a maximum 2-pager, 3-pager, where your first bullet point is the outcome of whatever analysis you've done, and then maybe 2 or 3 summary bullet points before you go into the detail of a graph or not. And I totally agree with Jayshree. If you see a graph going up or down, and as Jen said, with as 3 colors as possible, that really helps. The other thing we learned is, in addition to giving data to, for instance, the Ministry of Health, we were working with health facilities, providing them with data on what genomic surveillance data were showing, for instance, for COVID, really built that capacity and understanding of what impact that might have on basically what the work they're doing in the health facility with regards to treating patients. And then the final point is just going back again to what Dauda mentioned. When they're involved at the beginning and they're leading it, it's much easier to then engage with them. I think my experience was trying to work backwards and saying, this is the data I have, but when this changed around and they asked for a particular question around HRPT circulation or tests, then it was much easier to engage. So when it's led by them, that's really
Alfredo, last words?
Yeah. Our experience in Mozambique is that co-design of the question makes a big difference. We define the question together, so it's very helpful for the researchers to think in a programmatic perspective, and also to have the opportunity to communicate the tools and the outcomes, molecular outcomes. So that co-design at the initial stages, I think, is very helpful to lead to an action.
So we're hearing engagement, communication, and sharing as a theme here today. We are unfortunately at time, and I know computer is so sorry. I do want to take a moment to, first of all, really congratulate the Tanzanian team for all the amazing work that they've done, and to really thank our eminent panelists here for sharing their perspectives and vision. And I'm sure there's a lot more questions, and this is an ongoing conversation, so I encourage all of you to ask questions of them afterwards and engage, and I'm sure everyone is more than willing to share their experience. So thank you, and join me in congratulating the team. Thank you, Isabella. Thank you, Alfredo.
Thank you.
Thank you.